What's up, you guys? Welcome back to the Christian Witch Podcast. I'm your host, Chosen, also known as at Christian Witch HTX, over on Instagram and TikTok and on Facebook as well as YouTube now. You can find me on Twitter at Christian Witch X, no HT there, just X. And you can also just find me at christianwitchhtx.com. I'm a certified professional psychic medium. I'm the host of this podcast along with my wonderful co-host Lux from Intuitive Therapy by Lux. And yeah, I'm also the headmaster at Elysium Academy of Mystical Arts, which just kicked off our winter cycle. And I am the associate pastor of an online church for Christian witches called Christian Witch in the Craft. We have about 11,000 members, and it's just really awesome over there. So definitely go check us out. Today, we're talking about spirituality and mental health part 2. Before we do that, I want to let you guys know about some upcoming events. As I mentioned before, we have the winter cycle of the 15-week training in witchcraft, healing, and psychic development that just kicked off. I have one spot that's still open. Somebody last minute couldn't join. So if you're interested, head to the website, christianwitchhtx.com, and shoot me an email. If not, you can get on the wait list for our spring cycle starting on March 20th. I can only take so many students per cycle. So like literally, if you want to get on there, go now. Other than that, I'll be at Thorn and Moon Magical Market on February 4th here in Houston, Texas, doing readings in person at a discount from 6 to 11 p.m. And then I'm also going to be at Austin Witch Fest. Witch Fest in Austin. I think it's hosted by Yarrow and Sage, if I'm not mistaken. It's a huge event. Lilith Dorsey is going to be there. And I think it's Jason Mankey, maybe Jason Miller. Might be getting that wrong. Either way, come see me. I'm going to be there all day doing readings and meeting you guys. And then we also have our healing course and mediumship course launching this spring for the Elysium Academy. So if you're interested, definitely get on that wait list for the 15-week training, or shoot me an email and say, hey, I'm just interested in the healing or mediumship, and we'll put you on a list to get notified for that. All right, let's introduce Lux here. Lux, tell me what's going on, girl. How's it going?
Hey guys, my name is Lux with Intuitive Therapy by Lux. I have a website, luxintuitivetherapy.com. There you can find my full list of services and more information about me. I'm also a professional psychic medium, just like Chosen. I call it intuitive therapy, but we've talked about that being the exact same thing many times. Yeah, so don't let that confuse you. But yeah, I'm also an ordained minister with the Metaphysical Ministries. And that's about it. I have my own podcast called The Joy of Metaphysics. I'm on Instagram, Facebook. I'm not too much on TikTok anymore, but there is some content on there.
Oh, there's some good content. Go check it out.
Check it out. Kind of get to know me a little bit better and my viewpoints and different things like that. So, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, today we're stalking. You guys, I can't talk. Just so you guys know, we are testing out using a microphone again, as opposed to just like hanging out and using our phones, just like on the go and whatnot. But so the audio may be a little different. You may have to turn it down a little bit or turn it up a little bit. We're not really sure. We're trying to figure it out. Believe it or not, I do have a degree in audio engineering, but this was a last minute decision. So it's not like we have a full setup here. So that being said, I apologize if you can hear every little thing, like the wind blowing and the cats meowing and the stomachs rumbling, like are bad. So let's go ahead and we'll dive right in. All right, so spirituality and mental health part 2. Sorry it took us a couple weeks. We've been kind of busy and we have the holidays and whatnot. What are we talking about today, Lux?
Okay, so yeah, finally we're finishing up. Well,
no, this is just part 2. This is just part 2. We may have 3 and 4 come in, or maybe just 3. Who knows?
But we are going to finally do part 2 of spirituality and mental health. And today we're going to be talking about the next 3 spiritual traps that we mentioned in our first part. And if you haven't listen to that, please go listen to that first and then come back here and finish up. Today, we're going to be talking about spiritual escapism, spiritual tourism, and spiritual peak chasing. So just so y'all know, just real quick, the 7 spiritual traps are things that can lead us into spiritual psychosis. And very interestingly, when we first started talking about spiritual psychosis, if anyone's in the spiritual communities or the witch talk communities, this is actually a really hot topic right now. Yeah. Like really hot right now.
Because it's so common.
It's apparently really common. People are really talking about it just a lot right now. So it's actually we're on topic, like we're on trend. You know
Yeah,
what
and
I
a
mean?
big thing for us is discernment. And I feel like that knowing this stuff helps you have discernment.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I think, one of the main takeaway, we're going to talk about solutions too. We're not going to just talk about being stuck in the problem, but if we can identify the problem, and we can acknowledge it and realize that within ourselves, like acceptance and admittance is like the first step to moving away from the problem and moving into the solution. I went through a lot of this stuff in early spirituality. And just, so we've all been through it. It's just forms of spiritual infancy that I've seen, at least in my own practice. So,
and like they are traps. Like
Yeah,
it's
they
not
are
like you can be
traps.
well-meaning and end up in this
Exactly.
place because when you're unhealed, you don't know that you need to heal.
Yeah, this is kind of, I feel like, more of a modern thing because, in the modern day, we are really about, learning the information and not having mentors. I mean, it's really hard to find spiritual mentors that aren't trying to like suck you dry or just outright con artists or scam
Or
artists
brainwash
or
you.
brainwashing. And it just, so this is really the age of like solitary practice. So it's even easier to fall into these spiritual traps if you don't have, someone kind of holding you accountable and keeping you on track. All of the like research that I've done in terms of like people who were back in the 1920s and even before that, who were a part of the modern revival of like occultism and things, like a lot of people back in those books and in those days are talking about like, Israel Regardie, for instance, like he was a big proponent of having a therapist or someone that you could talk to, a psychologist, as you're going through your spiritual awakening to kind of keep you on track and make sure you're not,
Yeah, and what you'll find is a lot of like psychiatrists and counselors and everything, they'll encourage you to go on this journey. They'll be like, hell yeah, do it.
Yeah.
Like, go for it. Like, I know somebody told me that they were talking to their therapist. I don't know who it was. I don't know. Not that they would know if I told them anyways. But my point is like somebody was like, hey, yeah, I told my counselor that, or my therapist that I was exploring witchcraft, and they were so excited. And like, I was like, what? I for sure would have thought they'd lock you up. Like, oh, that's such a bad joke. Nobody's gonna lock you up for anything. Don't be afraid to tell your counselor anything. It was a bad joke. But like, we have this idea in our head, like we can't tell people, oh, hello, kitty. We have this idea that we can't tell people the things that we're like learning and stuff. Like for instance, like in dating, it's so much fun when they ask me what I do.
Oh yeah.
If you've ever seen Charmed and like one of the Halliwell sisters has to like figure out how to tell their lover that they're a witch, I don't even tell them that I'm a witch. I just tell them I'm a psychic medium, and that in itself is entertaining. But
yeah, that's like, let's dip one toe in first.
Yeah, and once
handle that.
Yeah, sometimes I just like entertain myself, and I'll just be like, "Do you really want to know?" And like I'll just lay it all out there. And a lot of the times that's when it works out best. So anyways, back on point here. Tell your therapist everything. But yeah, definitely Israel Regardie, he was a big proponent for that. What? Did you lose your train of thought?
I did.
It's because I was entertaining you because you were imagining me telling so-and-so.
Also, this is totally off topic. So I just realized that we film on Tuesdays, which is like ruled by Mercury, which is great for communication.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Look at you.
I don't know why that just popped into my head.
Because you're a Hellenistic astrology goddess. Just kidding. That's so interesting. Tuesdays.
Did you realize that yet?
No, I didn't. Well, because I'm a big proponent for
just do magic when you want.
Yeah, you could kind of do like what you want to do, and like I teach my students like, yeah, like if you want everything to be working in your favor as best as possible, absolutely consider it.
Yeah.
I'm going to teach you how to make it work regardless. Yeah. But
well, we're intuitively making it happen, man.
I know. Like, that's because we're so intuitive.
Right.
We're just like so gifted. I'm just kidding. Oh my God, people are going to hate us. No, I'm just kidding. Actually, I get so many messages from people and they're like, love the podcast. I got one today. I posted a picture. I was like, how's everybody doing? Like, I was asking questions. They literally were like, love the podcast. Like, that was their response. And I was like, all right. New episode out later. Anyway, so thanks for that, you guys. Let's jump back on topic though.
Spiritual escapism.
Okay, and this is the first what again? What do you call them?
7 spiritual traps.
Okay, 7 spiritual traps. And this is the third one, actually.
Yeah.
Not the first. This is the first one we're talking about. In this episode, we did the first 2 in our previous part 1 episode. So we're on escapism, which is number 3. So tell us about escapism, Lux.
All right. So spiritual escapism is using spiritual practices in order to avoid one's own real life issues and basically dealing with things in your life. So it's using things like meditation, ritual, even reading or excessive researching to avoid doing anything practical in our lives. So I know for me, I've told this, and I know I've told this in the first episode, even though I can't exactly remember. I know I must have mentioned this, but I
had to have.
I used meditation for a very long time to avoid pretty much dealing with anything. And I still kind of fall victim to this sometimes. There's so many times where I want to just read and be absorbed into the spiritual spaces and the research and all of this stuff, and not do the dishes. And I think
for sure, it's so much more important.
It's so much. It's so much more fun to do this instead of doing the practical things that we need to do. But it only becomes a problem when we stop bathing, we stop doing the things that we stop going to work, stuff like that.
Stop being productive.
Or being productive, or even worse, allowing our mental health to kind of take a place on the back burner where we're not addressing things that we should be, and we're literally escaping into the spiritual spaces and things. And you can use anything as a form of escapism.
100%.
Anything can, even reading fantasy novels can become a form of escape. Playing video games. Yeah,
we were talking about that.
Spirituality and the things on the spiritual path are not they're not exempt from that. They can be used and abused just like anything else in this world can. So
absolutely. And I know we've talked about this before, but from a professional psychic mediumship, light work, healing capacity, you're right. Anything can be used as a form of escapism. Excessive, for instance, getting obsessed with skincare, getting obsessed with self-care, getting obsessed with fitness, getting obsessed with video games, boyfriends, girlfriends, them friends, whatever you want to call it. Dealing with anything to take your mind off of it. And here's what TV binge watching things. Yeah. Okay. So much for communication. I'm getting tongue twisted. What happens when we do this is that we become humans are wide open, just vessels that are being influenced for either beneficial purposes or non-beneficial purposes. Okay. 75% of your thoughts are not your own. Check out my TikTok. Listen, you are subject to being influenced at all times. Okay. This is what we have to take control of our thoughts and keep our thoughts captive to the mind of Christ. And when you're escaping, you're vacant. You're wide open for any old thing to walk right in, and you're avoiding your issues. When we talk about doing the work, we're not talking about doing a bunch of practice to get better at your craft. We're talking about doing the work, working through your issues in order to get healthier, become whole, and then move forward. Then you can get better at your craft in that process, But it can lead to paranormal issues, this escapism. And it's oh, well, how did this happen? We were, on the path of love and light, or, whatever, which is such a toxic culture in and of itself. But paranormal issues are very real. And it gets to the point, a lot of teenagers suffer with this, especially gamers. And I'm not hating on games. Be mindful. Especially people who get obsessed with true crime television and or horror stuff. Listen, guys, I know a lot of this stuff is filmed and fiction, but they are tapping into that energy in order to create something that is in alignment with that level of frequency, so to speak. My vocabulary is not the best right now, but you still feel that when that stuff happens. So it's really important that you pay attention to make sure that you're not escaping, because you could get attachments very easy and that could lead to worse things. Okay. And that's where a lot of mental health issues come in with escapism, is that you're getting anxiety and depression and all these other things. And I can't prescribe or diagnose, but a lot of this can be symptoms of escapism and certain frequencies that have kind of latched on because you're feeding this, or you're just wide open and you're a food source. So yeah, it's much more dangerous than we think.
where I've seen spiritual escapism, like I guess a practical example, like
Mhm.
actually in the spiritual communities and things like that, is the 5D New Earth
Oh,
people.
child.
And what I've noticed is like a lot of the like star seed or
We are
even
not
like
homesick aliens. I mean,
people
technically we are, but like not like that.
people also being just generally obsessed with like past life regression stuff, being
Mm-hmm.
obsessed with past lives. This really starts to rear its head when we are not rooted and grounded in the here and now.
Yeah.
It's being centered in some sort of past, perceived past influence, or being centered in the future. So, 5D New Earth chosen people, they're very centered in the future, right? So everything they
Mm-hmm.
do in the now is so they think, to set themselves up for the future. Like, the aliens are going to come and get me. There's going to be this new earth. I've got to make sure that my vibration's high enough, or this or
Mm-hmm.
that, or doing all of these things, instead of just living for the now moment and
Absolutely.
being in the now, and giving that gift to yourself. Because when we're rooted and grounded in the now, like we're fully present with not only ourselves, but with our family and with our
Mm-hmm.
lives and the things that we're doing. And those that are, super obsessed with the star seeds and the past lives and things like that, this is rooted in the past,
Yeah.
obviously. And so we can become very obsessed with like, oh, I was an Andromedan star seed, and what does that mean? And all, it's like it doesn't mean anything, because right
Yeah.
now you're not an Andromedan star seed.
Exactly.
Right now you are a human being, and you're living in, Houston, Texas. And what does that
Yep.
mean for me? And what does that mean to be, a 25-year-old woman living in, Texas, who was this and that? Like, what does it mean for my life right now? And I went through this too, guys. Like, don't fall for these types. I mean, you gain a little bit of discernment and intuition, this stuff really falls away quite quickly. But I still fell victim to it there for a while. And what I'm trying to say is that when you're using these ideologies to escape the present moment, the only thing that can come out of it are two things: anxiety and depression. Because when you're living in the future to such an extent that everything you do in the now is rooted in the
Mm-hmm.
future, you start getting in fear. You start
Yeah.
getting anxious. You start like, okay, well, everything I have to do is, what if they don't get me, or what if my
Oh.
vibration isn't high enough, and you start getting anxious, right? And
Yes.
you start doing you can start doing some really outrageous things and telling people some really outrageous things, because you're not addressing what you're feeling inside, because you're trying to keep your vibration high in order for them to come and get you and be a chosen one. All nine types of
I
stuff.
mean,
And
I'm
the
sorry.
same is, it's, yeah, I mean, it's pretty sad. And then the same is true with, the starseed stuff too, because then what do you get? Like you said, Chosen, earlier, this homesick feeling, which is depression. You
Yep.
start getting into depression. So, and this goes for across the board. It doesn't matter if it's spiritual things that are keeping you in the past and the future. I talk about this on my
Mm-hmm.
podcast a lot. Or it's real world events keeping you in the past or the future. If you're
Yeah.
not grounded and rooted in the present moment, insanity strikes. And
Mm-hmm.
insanity is when you're not in the present moment. I mean, the reality of the situation is that the past is something that we can never get back. It's basically non existent. The future is something that is not here yet. It's unborn. So it's not existent. The only moment that truly exists is the now. And when you take yourself or your mindset, your perception out of the now, you're living in these realities that aren't really existing. And
Mm-hmm.
that breeds insanity. That's why we start feeling anxious or depressed, as the case may be. And so, like we talk about, these spiritual traps, they are serious issues and they do impact our mental health. And this is where a therapist or a mentor would really come to the rescue, because they would be
Yeah.
like, hey,
Get you out of
let's
this.
move from that and pull yourself back into the present moment. And what we really need to do, Chosen, is sit down with a list of ground rules. And it's like you start checking all of these ideologies as you're on this. It's like your spiritual
Mm-hmm.
checklist, and you have a map. Basically,
Mm-hmm.
you have these ground rules, and you're navigating the spiritual plane, and you're checking things, back checking them against your base, and you're
Yeah.
saying, say rule number one is staying in the here and now.
Yeah.
So when you come to an ideology, and this is how you gain discernment, when you come to an ideology like star seeds, for example, it's like, how is this helping me stay in the here and now?
Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah.
So, okay, that's intuition and discernment say it's got to go.
Yeah. And I'll give you another example, just like in modern Christian ministry. I did an internship at the International House of Prayer.
Yeah.
And that place is literally, and it's a global movement, 24 hours, 7 days a week, unending prayer and worship for Jesus to return and the end of the world to take place.
There it is.
Okay. And it is, and here's the deal, there's a lot of healing, there's a lot of miracles, signs, and wonders. There is a lot of education and growth there, but it is always about wanting him to come back, wanting this to end, wanting to move forward. And that is a form of escapism. And it is it is backed by Christian superstars. So much so that, and the thing is that people know it's slightly culty. Like, and it's just a whole different story. I'm not going to get into that and talk about it because I still have fondness for it in some ways, but like we have to have a healthy approach to it, because if not, it can get really bad. For instance, when I came home, I was still living with my parents at the time, and I was a teenager. I just turned 20, I think, or 21. I can't remember. But they were still paying for most of my bills. I was finishing college and all kinds of other stuff. And I was doing this internship as a form of ministry training. And my dad was like Googling things, and he's just like such a conspiracy theorist. And he was just like, oh, like they're definitely a cult. He has to come home. They forced me to come home, and I laid in bed and I cried because I felt like I had been ripped out of my home.
Wow.
And I was like, I want to go home. That's the only way I knew how to express what I was feeling. And that is so unhealthy. When they came to see me, like, and keep in mind, like you're in what they call the global prayer room, and it's 24/7 unending worship and prayer, and you're not talking. You're sitting there praying. They have people that do this full time and have supporters called intercessory missionaries, where they sit there and they intercede and pray for the return of Jesus and for all these things to get sorted out so that Jesus can return and we can move on to the new Jerusalem, the new earth.
Wow.
And like that is a form of escapism while there is a lot of healing going on. So it's like you can have a lot of good things going on and a lot of major revelation, power, miracle, signs, wonders, development, but still have bad things happening.
Right.
They have a major conference at the end of the year for the last decade or so. I don't remember how long, but it's called One Thing. It's like a $4 million conference to throw. And there's like, I don't know, tens or hundreds of thousands of young adults. It's a young adult conference that comes and they worship, and it's like an intensive training, and it's wonderful. But one year I was there and I was just talking to the Holy Spirit, and I just heard like, I'm not pleased with this. This is not what I want. And I was like, I literally started questioning like if I was hearing correctly. I was like, oh my, what? But at the same time, that's a place where I grew in leaps and bounds and had encounters with Holy Spirit. So it was really hard because Spirit was telling me like, this is not, this is not exactly what I'm asking, and I'm not saying like I am the end all be all prophet on things and like I declare the will and desire of Holy Spirit. But to me, that's what I got.
Well, yeah.
And it lined up with some other people because I said something to people I trusted, and I was like, I just heard this. And they kind of looked at me like, oh my gosh, we were just talking about that. But they didn't say anything. They were just like, wow. Because we were in the presence of everybody. So, anyways,
that's
just
important. Your truth.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big part of discernment, is discerning what your truth is.
Yeah.
I mean, it goes hand in hand with self-love too, because we start defining what serves me in this moment. You know what I mean? And not from a selfish point of view, obviously. And that's why we need this set of rules, because it's like, okay, how do I find my truth? You obviously are not going to say like, oh, well, my truth is going around killing people. Like, no, you know what I mean? So like rule number one, compassion.
That's not how that works.
Yeah, compassion, empathy, like humility, altruism, things like that. So it's like having these, these ground rules. They
would fire up the yard tools the day we use a mic. They would hear it.
They absolutely would. And
okay.
I don't know why either, because the ground's soaking wet. So I don't know what they
Yeah, what are you doing over there? Just kidding. I'm sorry. I just could not resist saying that. Okay. But yes, you're correct.
Yeah.
It's so important. So important.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Go to the next one?
I do want to go on to the next one because we are already a little over 20 minutes, and we can sit here and spend 20 minutes on each one.
Yeah.
So we need to make sure that we're not doing that, because these guys I know are not sitting around all day to listen to us rant about these things. They're like, give us the goods, you guys. Actually, I'm just kidding. Some of them, they say they do like to hear us go back and forth. I don't know. Tell me what you like. Send me a message.
Moving right along. Okay, let's do spiritual tourism.
Okay. All right. Break it down. Bust down that door, girl. Let us know what's going on.
Okay. So spiritual tourism is pretty much exactly what it sounds like. It's always dabbling in a lot of different spiritual things, always looking for the next new teaching, the next new knowledge, next new thing, always, going on, going to the next. We've got power tools, we've got the keys.
Cats.
Yeah, it's maybe going to the next new retreat, the next new workshop, the next new thing. Trying to again just chase the next new teaching, the next new thing that there is to learn, but it's never committing to any form of daily practice. And listen, this is not me coming after the eclectics, because I'm okay, I'm an eclectic myself. I love to research and look into different spiritual practices. That's not what I'm saying. It's again being, I believe it's being, like you've said, chosen many times, being so heavenly minded, being no earthly good. A big spiritual trap in general is just, living with the head in the clouds and not bringing these spiritual concepts down to a practical level in our day-to-day lives. How is this serving me on a practical level, rather than like living in these what is the point in knowing all of these abstract spiritual truths if it's not helping me on a practical
what
level?
healing and growth is coming from it?
Exactly.
If it's not, then it's not for you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so this is a big part of that is, looking around and just generally, it goes right along with the next one, which is peak chasing, which we're going to get into in a minute.
Yeah.
But it's, it's just not committing to any form of spiritual practice. What do you have on that?
I mean, think about it this way, you guys. It's like dating. It's like the flavor of the month. This is what we talk about when we talk about releasing things that no longer serve you. The things that aren't actually benefiting you. It's not wrong to like look into things that you're interested in. Like she said, we're not coming for the eclectics, which we better not be, because I'm eclectic to the max. But there is a sense of like needing to like actually apply the principles. It's kind of like when we talk about like, let's quit learning and researching and reading about witchcraft and actually do witchcraft. Oh, it was a dirt bike he was riding, you guys. Oh, you guys are getting a glimpse into our crazy life today. Just trying to get business done, like the whole world is losing their mind. So yeah, it's kind of like, yeah, that's exactly what it's like. I don't even know what else to say other than that. The thing is, like, we always, when it comes to tourism, we're always trying to solve other people's problems instead of doing our own. We need to actually like do the work, do something, do witchcraft, do healing work, do meditate. Like don't just look into something, actually apply it, and if it doesn't serve you, release it and move forward. Yeah. And this is with everything in our life, but especially in spirituality. There's so much to get lost in. Like people are so upset. Like there comes a time when you are on your growth, and I just heard one of my favorite authors, or I read in one of their books, talk about like you get kind of burnt out after a while because you're kind of like, you've consumed all there is to consume. You're kind of like, there's really nothing here. It's because you're not actually practicing or doing anything, and you haven't found the thing that like really speaks to you.
Exactly. I think it's worth mentioning all three of these really do go hand in hand.
Yeah.
And I think a big reason we're drawing a blank on spiritual tourism, because we covered a lot of the stuff in spiritual escapism.
100%.
It's going to result in the same thing that spiritual escapism results in. It's, again, avoiding doing anything practical and allowing us, to get caught up in the rat race of these spiritual things. There's also a lot of spiritual narcissism that goes into this one as well. It's, again, looking for knowledge's sake, just to have knowledge.
Just so you have it. When someone brings it up, you can throw it out there.
Right. I had, my mentor actually pointed out this defect of character, if I can say that, in me. She said, like, you are a hoarder of knowledge, and you can use it sometimes to like prop yourself up on like an unwarranted pedestal. And it's because, she really nailed me. And this is why it's important to have a mentor or, somebody taking you through this, because they'll call you out on this stuff. Like, hey, like this is not appropriate behavior. This is a misuse of what you're supposed to be doing. Like, we're not just gaining knowledge here of all these different things so we can look cool.
Like, 100, yeah.
Like, this is sacred spiritual wisdom that the ancients and our forefathers like used in order for us to grow closer to God. Like, above
and like some
all,
people died to hide and keep alive.
Exactly. Above all, that's again one of the rules we need to add to this roadmap, this checklist to keep us on track, to keep us with these mile markers, and to cross-reference things with. One of the things is, above all, we're going to God. And so how is this knowledge helping me grow closer to God and my fellows, the people about me? Is this separating me from them, or
I like to grow close with my fellows as well.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
Is this causing division between me and somewhere else? Am I checking our motives too? Is a big thing. Like, am I using this information to one up people, to do all sorts of crazy stuff? Again, this one goes hand in hand with spiritual narcissism as well.
And I think it leads right into peak chasing, the last one we're talking about today.
Yeah, and this is peak chasing is the purpose of the spiritual journey is only for exciting experiences. This is someone who peak chases, as they see the spiritual journey as literally chasing each high, for amazing, mind-blowing, visionary experiences. It's always chasing something phenomenal, because the person, again, cannot accept or find peace with the mundane side of life.
And you know what? This is so common in regular, everyday Christian churches. And I'm sure in other faiths too, but that's where I come from and my main thing. And we often see people who come out of the world, quote unquote, or, get saved or have an encounter with God, or come out of addiction instantly because someone prayed for them, which does happen, you guys. It does happen. But I'm just saying, sometimes it's also spiritual psychosis. It's mental health not being balanced properly. Maybe not always psychosis, but like it's the escapism, the tourism, the peak chasing. They're running from service to service. Yeah. They're at 5 services a night looking for a quote unquote touch from God to keep them going. And it's honestly, they're just not able to connect with, actually, let me put it this way. At some point, you have to learn to be able to get in touch with God on your own, at home, outside of a dramatic circumstance, outside of a psychologically manipulated circumstance. And here's the deal, guys. Worship, music, lights, all this stuff is wonderful. They're absolutely fundamental and beautiful and so beneficial in creating an atmosphere for the Spirit of God to move and to heal and to touch people's lives and to make His power known. However, some people rely on those factors to get into that place, and they never learn how to get into that place instantly by themselves. And that's what I feel like is very detrimental. Is like, what happens if all the churches close? You're stuck. We have to get you to the place where you can connect, and you're not just seeking that high or that, dynamic preacher or whatever it may be. Let me tell you something. Worship culture is thebomb.com in the Christian world. But a lot of those guys, like, you can get obsessed with the way they make you feel, the places they're able to take you, because you haven't learned to go there yourselves. Mm-hmm. And so, and I'm not saying that's wrong and that you shouldn't listen to worship music. I'm just saying, like, this is like almost an aspect of what people do. They become obsessed with them, and they're on repeats when they're at home because they take them into these deep experiences. So I think it's really important that we learn to identify when we're seeking those peak moments, and if we're able to recreate our connection with not as much dynamic on our own.
Yeah, it's almost like...
Oh, you know what, guys? Hold on one second. We are recording this, and I need to swap out the battery. So 1 second. Okay, we should be good now. Go ahead, Lux.
Okay. So we really do, and when we're participating in peak chasing, spirituality really does become like a drug.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's so common. They replace addiction with it.
Yeah,
or
absolutely.
Dependency.
No, yeah, that's exactly what goes down. And I've fallen into this trap myself. And honestly, the study of the Tree of Life has really opened my eyes to a lot of things. The main one being the importance of understanding, like, here on earth, we live in a place of duality. And I believe that there's a reason for that. We're here to experience, I believe, like, all sides of life. We're here to experience and see God in a lot of different forms. And we're here to, how can we, like, worship or admire or adore God if we're a part of God? Do you see what I'm saying? So if we're constantly like in this space where we're one and unified with God, like we can't ever see it in its true glory. So that's why I believe we incarnate down here, so that we can look back at God and be like, wow, holy crap. Like that is an amazing experience. I'm also a proponent of, if it was sunny all the time, we would never like appreciate the sunny days. They would just be neutral days. They wouldn't be good or bad. They would just be, it's another day. You know what I'm saying? The rainy days are the days that are uncomfortable, the days of pain, these hot and cold moments, this perception, this duality, it makes life, we're able to have some sort of reference point. We're able to see God in all of its good when those times of like suffering and pain are apparent. And so if we're always like peak chasing and living for the next high, the next high, the next high, the next high, like we're not actually, to me, we're not living in a reality. It's not a reality that we're supposed to be like high, high, high all the time. There's a saying where I'm from also, it's like pain is the touchstone of spiritual growth. And I'm always having to tell my clients, like, even though you're walking the spiritual path, like this being at peace, literally like 24/7, acting like and this took me a really long time to learn, like acting like I'm never going to get, I'm angry again. I'm never going to be irritable. I'm never going to have a bad day. I'm never going to be sad. Like that's what enlightenment meant to me. And that's just like not the case.
That's not true.
We're living in these human bodies. This here on earth, we can experience heaven on earth for sure, but this is not heaven. You know what I'm saying?
Correct. Like, heaven meets earth through, I believe our spirit is the portal to which heaven meets earth.
Right.
And like we're to be able to live here, recognize the situation and say, hey, you know what? I'm from a place where like this wouldn't fly, and I'm going to pull on that resource to hopefully change your situation.
Yeah.
So I get exactly what you're saying. Yeah, absolutely.
Bad things, I'm saying bad things exist here.
Bad things do exist here. And to deny them is to lie.
Right. Exactly.
When we talk about, and because there can be toxicity, okay?
Yes.
This is a whole nother podcast, but let's just break it down real simply, real quick. When you are faced with bad things, there's a difference in rejecting reality and raising your perspective of the situation. When we talk about what I just talked about is rising to a different level. When you're on a mountain, okay, and this is nothing against people who like snakes, okay, I don't, but it's not my business. There is something called a snake line on a mountain where snakes can no longer exist past it because it's literally a different atmosphere.
Yeah.
Okay. And so it's almost like that. We may see an issue or a threat. I feel like I'm hating on snakes now. That's not what I mean. Okay. We're just using that as a bad example, but okay. But like we can also rise above that line and see a reality where it doesn't exist and cannot exist and say, oh, I know what this experience is like, and I'm taking it back to where I'm at. Exactly. Or I'm going to choose to rise above and live in this place,
Right.
So it's not rejecting reality. It's rising above it, so to speak, but in a healthy, it does exist kind of way,
You're exactly right. In metaphysics, they taught us that this is understanding that this is a temporary physical condition, and it's due to the fact that I am in a human body, and it's realigning truth, and it's understanding that like nothing is permanent and everything is changing, and it's being able to see past this current negative or uncomfortable situation. And it's not denying the current situation. It's acknowledging it, and I believe it's having faith.
Absolutely, it
is.
That,
we can move past it. This too shall pass. Things like that. But however, the point that we're trying to make is that it is happening in the moment.
Correct.
And we need to honor the way we're feeling. And so when I was a victim to this mentality, like I should all over myself, I've talked about this on the podcast before, was, well, I shouldn't be feeling like this because I know that it will pass, and I have faith in God, and I'm not going to recognize this negativity, and I'm not going to feel
but
this
the
way.
thing about God is that God cares about your emotions.
Exactly. Like if you're sad, that's okay.
Yeah.
And I think this is what Chosen was talking about when he was saying, like, for lack of a better term, the love and light culture, we hate to kind of use the terms like higher vibration, things like that, because they don't express, especially not now with the way that they've been used,
Yeah.
what we're accurately trying to say.
Yeah.
So like a lot of people use that mentality of raise your vibration, keep your is toxic positivity, toxic spirituality. Again,
Yeah.
we've talked
Or
about
like
this
if you see
before.
this stuff, you're obviously not in the certain dimension.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's just nonsense.
It's nonsense.
And also,
you can
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I keep cutting you off. I'm so sorry.
It's okay. Last thing I want to say.
No.
You are allowed to have feelings. One of the most important things my mentor told me was like, you've got to cut the crap with these negative and positive emotions. Feelings are for feeling, not for fixing. And emotions are fluid concepts. They come and they go and they teach us different things. And if God didn't want us to feel anger, we wouldn't feel anger.
Correct.
So it's what we do with that anger that is our free will choice, right? So God didn't give us anger so he could go kill people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, that's not what's going on.
Yeah.
He gave us anger in order for us to feel something. So for us to deny anger, sadness, depression, and to live in this fantasy land where we're not, even acknowledging these things at all is not what we were sent here to do. We have these choices on how to feel these emotions, and we should feel them, hold them like small birds, and let them go. And I don't know why my mentor used that analogy. She said, with every emotion, I want you to hold it like a small bird in your hands and allow it to fly away when it's ready to.
And that's exactly what Spirit's saying right now is be an observer, not an absorber.
Exactly.
Yeah, be an observer of what's going on. Don't absorb it. When things come up, be like, okay, I observe that this is what I'm feeling currently, but I am going to claim that this is like going to pass, or like this, the truth is X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
And so I'm not going to feed this any more than I have to. I'm going to process this and let it go, release it, process it out.
Exactly.
Okay, not reject it and shut it down.
Yeah,
there's a difference.
Compartmentalize.
100%.
This has been like the hugest thing for me to, learn. And again, one of the things my mentor said is she said, lean in and lean on someone.
Yes.
That's how we deal with emotions. We lean in and lean on someone, and compartmentalizing and having this mentality of like toxic positivity and always having to, that's not leaning in. What I'm saying?
Well, and when emotions get involved, it can also make you feel ignorant. It's like, it's hard to think and have clear worldviews and paradigms and everything. And like, there's times where like I'm going through something and like, I'll message you and I'll be like, I don't know why I can't think through myself through this.
Right.
It's because I'm not supposed to think myself through it. I'm supposed to just feel it and release it.
Yeah.
Or just feel it for however long I'm supposed to feel it and then release it. And then there's moments I snap out of. I'm like, why could I not see clearly? Like, it's literally like a fog sometimes.
Yeah, no, it really is.
And like one of the things that also goes along with everything we've said is like, it's not about bad things not being here, or God making bad things happen to us, or the Creator making those things happen to us, because that's not what happens. It's just, this is a state of creation currently, and the good news is that the Creator makes all things work together for our good.
Right.
All things, good, bad, correct, incorrect, it all works for our good. And like, that's the truth we have to hang on to.
Yeah, it's having faith in the divine plan, really, at the end of the day. Again, another checklist.
In the divine character, actually.
Yeah, in the divine plan, the divine character, it's on the freaking tree of life. It's called knowledge of the machinery of the universe. It's like just an initiatory thing. It's an understanding that you start navigating. And again, greater intuition and discernment develops once you understand these things and truly know them and truly know the character of Holy Spirit, like we were talking about on the last podcast. In terms of peak chasing, like this mentality really breeds peak chasing because we're trying to do anything we possibly can to not feel those emotions because we feel like we're not supposed to, or we've been shamed out of them, or we feel like, oh, I can't be connected to God because I'm feeling these ways. And one of the things, that's the cats. Another thing that my mentor told me is she said, my connection to God is not contingent upon my mood today.
Correct.
And that is so true. Like, we can be connected to the Spirit and also like be angry at the same time. Like, that does not mean that I'm not connected to God. It means right now I'm having a human emotion, So yeah, and it's also just it's loving yourself enough to sit with your emotions, and it's not having high expectations on yourself. Being hard on yourself, I believe is okay to a certain extent, because that allows us to move forward into progress and always pushing us to improve and things like that. But it's also weighing that against coming to a self-acceptance as well.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's like having a growth mindset is good, but we also don't want to be pushing it so far over the top that we're like ruining our lives.
Yeah.
So again, everything can be like used and abused, and that's really all I got.
Yeah.
These three really go hand in hand a lot.
Yeah, and also it all comes down to like it literally, and I've said this a million times, I say it and I'll keep saying it a million times, is that it literally comes down to, are you aligning with fear or love?
Mm-hmm.
All of this comes from a place of fear, you know? And like the best way to get rid of fear is to understand the character of love, who is the Holy Spirit. And, you know, like you said a minute ago, my identity does not change regardless of how I feel or where I feel that I fall. I'm seated in heaven at the right hand of the Creator. And that doesn't matter if I feel like I am the shellfish in the ditch outside the kingdom. Like, it doesn't matter because I didn't make the rules. Okay. Like, this is just the way it is. And that's the way it is for everyone. We are all beautifully, wonderfully loved. And the thing about the Holy Spirit and the Trinity and Creator is that they're good and they are in a good mood. Okay. Most of the time they're in a good mood. They're sad when you're sad. They're righteously furious when you've been wronged, but they are in a good mood and they are always, always for you. They are not a judge. They do not condemn us. None of that. And they are not waiting to slam the hammer down against you. Like, that's just not it. They're not even sitting in like a courtroom. Like, that's just not their character, you know? And so the more you understand the character of the Creator and the Spirit of God, and of course the incarnation of Jesus, and you know, we've learned lessons from all kinds of disciples and other spiritual leaders. I'm not trying to leave anyone out here, but the more you understand the character of love and the character of God, the more you realize like just how many decisions you made based from fear and how much you tried to avoid it. So anyways, alrighty, you guys, so end of story. Deal with your trauma. I'm just kidding. I mean, honestly, it's what it is, but key to change there. But
it's being okay with mundane life, and
yeah,
it's being okay with temporary negative conditions.
Yeah, absolutely. And life hack: get comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yeah,
if you are comfortable, nothing is changing, which means nothing can get better than it already is.
Right.
Okay.
So you know, we have another saying, real quick: life isn't butterflies and rainbows. You know what I mean? Or unicorn farts and rainbows or something.
Oh my God,
like
what?
Yeah, we say life's not butterflies and unicorn farts and rainbows or something.
One of my old associates used to say good times and noodle salad. What is that?
Noodle salad's great.
Noodle salad is good. Is that a thing?
What, like pasta salad?
Wait, what? Oh, guys, I'm sorry. I must be the picky eater from the South. I don't know.
I've never had pasta salad.
No, should we make some?
You've never had cold pasta salad?
Why would it be cold?
You're joking me.
Okay, apparently we have other things to discover besides the hidden mysteries of the universe, like noodle salad. Okay, well, I love you guys so much. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. We'll be back with the third part. Maybe it'll be the final part, depending on how many notes we make. Yeah, I hope you're doing well. Don't forget to check out all the upcoming events happening. And if you need to find me or book a reading at any point, you can go to christianwitchhtx.com. And for Lux, it is your website again.
luxintuitivetherapy.com.
I always get it mixed up because one of your handles is different from the website.
Well, the business name is Intuitive Therapy by Lux, but all of the handles are Lux Intuitive Therapy.
Aha! Look at you having a life hack there. Okay. That's mind-blowing information you just shared with me.
I've just been trying to figure it out.
No, I've been so scared I'm going to mess it up and they're going to land on some nutcase's website or something. No offense to anybody out there. Anyways. Okay, love you guys. Talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.